It is now 3 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? The NBA trade deadline is coming past. Portland's move came Sunday when they acquired Vic Krejci from the Hawks. As of now, no moves to open up space for City Sissoko or Caleb Love. Elsewhere, the Pacers sent Ben Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, and picks to the Clippers in exchange for Ivica Zubac and forward Kobe Brown. Warriors dealt Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield to the Hawks for Kristaps Porzingis. Jose Alvarado is headed to the Knicks in exchange for Dalen Terry. And the Lakers send Gabe Vincent and a second-round pick to the Hawks for Luke Kennard. Sean Highkin will join me in studio for the deadline at 4. Chris Burkhardt in studio at 5. Super Bowl 60, Sunday at Levi's Stadium. It's on NBC and Peacock. Seahawks remain a 4.5-point favorite with the total set at 45.5. The Trailblazers host the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow night at Moda Center. Tip-off at 7. Chris Burkhardt with Game Day Live at 5 on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Good news, Scoot Henderson to make his season debut tomorrow.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive, hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing. Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill.
As an elite football mind, where does your passion for this game come from?
I appreciate you saying that. Sometimes I don't feel that way about myself. I think when I started coaching high school football, I just fell in love with the process. You know, you could find an edge here, find an edge there. I was really enamored with the X's and O's and the strategy behind it. But honestly, I think what took my love for the game to the next level is when I actually became a coach. And now you're responsible for people on the field, and what they do and off the field. And you build those relationships. And when one of your players can do something one day that they couldn't do the day before, man, that'll get you hooked right there. And to see them grow in that point of their life, all that stuff was just like, okay, this is what I need to be doing.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
All right, my friends, I hope you are enjoying your day. We're now on the verge of entering into a great weekend. The NBA trade deadline is coming past as of 3 hours ago, and we got the big game coming up on Sunday with the Seahawks and the Patriots. I'm going to be down at Spirit Mountain Casino for the big game party. Super Bowl 60 with the Seahawks and Patriots, and the line has remained steady over the last several days where the Seattle Seahawks are a 4.5-point favorite. The total continues to sit at 45.5. Now, I'll be going and doing a deep dive tomorrow. I'll be down at Spirit Mountain Casino, and one of my favorite interviews of the week during football season is with Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager, who obviously is well connected around the country, especially down in Vegas. So we'll get all the details on the money movement, on what he is seeing, where the smart money is at. The latest figure that I uncovered today is it looks like the Sharps are about 60 to 65% on New England plus the 4.5. But we'll get full details, and I'll be able to give you my prediction. We'll get Justin's take. That's all coming up tomorrow at 3:20. And then Brian No, Fox Sports Radio, who will be hosting Countdown to Kickoff, as he does each and every weekend throughout the football season, will come on and talk about the big game. As I mentioned before, what's really fascinating to me with the Super Bowl is, one, the number of dollars that is being wagered legally. The estimates are going to put it up over $2 billion of legal wagering on the Super Bowl. My mind can't even fathom that type of figure, but it's going to be up over $2 billion. And the interesting part about the Super Bowl, from what I have been told, is that the books are less concerned about the side, either New England plus the 4.5, Seattle minus 4.5, because there are so many dollars being wagered on prop bets. And last year, the big number, there were hundreds of millions of dollars bet on Saquon Barkley, prop bets for the Super Bowl. So something to keep an eye on. So we'll go into that tomorrow. And coming up here in about 15 minutes, we will revisit a couple of comments from former Husky, 10 years in the NFL, Hugh Millen, who was on the show, and also Alex Brink, WSU Cougar from E4 Sports. So we'll dive into that coming up here in about 15 minutes. Sean Highkin in studio at 4, and then Chris Burkhardt will join me in studio at 5 to kind of break down the deadline. Now, let's just look at what the Blazers did. And I'm actually very happy with how I discussed this on the show and the information I was able to uncover. I was fortunate to have access to a couple of terrific sources. And I'm not one of those phonies that talks about sources this, sources that. But I did have the opportunity to talk to a couple of people very close to the Blazers, also a couple of guys who are well keyed in around the NBA. And so the information I gave you over the last couple of days is that it was unlikely that Giannis was going to be moved before the deadline, that it was probably going to happen if it does during the summer, because that's when it's much easier to get deals done. I also told you that, and this was from someone that would really know, that the NBA teams are still very cautious with the new CBA on how to get deals done because there's so much money restrictions and teams don't want to hose themselves. I also told you that, and this is a great one, after what happened last year with Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks when they dealt Luka Doncic to the Lakers and deserved and got a ton of criticism, there are no GMs that want to do that now. They're not going to put themselves in a position to where they become Nico Harrison. He provided the blueprint for what not to do. If you're going to move a big player, you're going to make sure you open it up for a bidding war to get the most assets in return possible. So if you're the Bucks and you're going to deal and move off of Giannis, well, you're going to make sure that you get everybody involved. And you have a little auction, and then you look at the offers, and you get the most in return as possible. Unlike Nico, who just dealt with one team, the Lakers, and didn't get jack in return, and ends up being one of the worst GMs in history, who authored the worst trade in sports history. Luka Doncic is killing it for the Lakers. And the guy that they said couldn't stay in shape and drank too much beer and enjoyed the hookah, he's killing it. He got himself in great shape, and he looks awesome. And he's had 29 games. This is my favorite stat. Remember, I told you going into that Rams-Seahawks football game in the playoffs that they were separated by 1 yard and 1 point through 2 games played on the season. That's an incredible stat. I love this stat. Luka Doncic this year, 29 games of 30 or more for the Lakers. Anthony Davis played 29 total games for the Mavericks in the last year since they made that deal. It was an awful trade. Nico Harrison is dumb. Dumb. He's also the dumb that left a different name up on the projector when he was making his presentation to Steph when he was with Nike. And that's part of the reason why they lost Steph, and he went to Under Armour. Good call. So the guy botched the Steph Curry situation with Nike and then authored the worst trade in sports history. So GMs don't want to be a part of that. And with the Blazers, here's the reality of where they're at. And I love what Joe Cronin did. He took their biggest need, which was a guy that could knock down threes. He brought in an elite three-point shooter in Vit Krejci on an incredibly team-friendly deal. And he did it by moving out a guy who was hurt and not going to contribute for the rest of the year into Reef. And then he also packaged a couple of future second-round picks. Now, the reason why I never talked about potential Giannis packages is because, based on the people I spoke with, I knew that the odds of the Blazers even making a play on Giannis were basically none. And the other thing, too, is that Giannis was not going to agree to re-sign in Portland. So I never thought that was going to happen. But I do believe exactly what I told you, that the Blazers were in a great spot. They didn't have to make a move. There was no pressure to make a move. They made the one move they needed and brought in a guy who's going to help the rest of the way and can knock down threes at over 42%. And they remain in a great position to continue to fire away during the summertime. Now, keep in mind, Joe Cronin's MO has been this. This happened with Denny Avdia. You talk to teams during the season. You talk about potential deals. You try to get things done. And if you don't before the deadline, those talks get tabled. And then once business opens in the summertime and you get up there around the draft and into free agency, then all of a sudden it's easier to get things done. And you can revisit some of the conversations you had with other teams prior to the deadline to be able to go out there and improve the roster. But now the Blazers sit in a very unique spot. They have pieces they can move on the roster, veteran pieces. They have a ton of draft capital now. They have restocked the cupboard and put themselves in a position to be able to continue to move forward and get things done. Now, I knew based on the person I spoke with that they were looking into the idea of opening up space for City Sissoko and Caleb Love, and they could still do that. Maybe you waive a guy who's going to expire and you know is not going to come back next year. But as they continue to get healthier, like let's take Caleb Love, for example. With the acquisition of Vit Krejci, and I just announced it in the update at the top that Scoot Henderson is going to make his debut tomorrow. Drew Holiday is back. They don't need a guard now. Caleb Love did a heck of a job for what he was asked to do during the time that they had so many guys in and out of the lineup. But with the addition of Krejci, with Drew Holiday being back in the lineup, with Denny Avdia handling the ball the majority of the time, and the also return of Blake Wesley, they don't need Caleb Love anymore. So there was no urgency to, clip a guy from the roster to add Caleb Love. And that's not to take away from anything that he's done as a young player this year. Now, I think of the two guys, City Sissoko, based on his skill set, would make the most sense because of his size, his physicality, and his defensive prowess. He would make the most sense if you were choosing one of the two based on skill set. But again, as this team continues to get healthier, it's not – they're going to be fine if they don't add or convert either one of those guys. Now, I don't know when Thibault's going to come back. I'll ask Sean Highkin. My guess is he doesn't know. But if Thibault and Chris Murray come back, then with the rest of the guys on the roster and being healthy, you don't need City Sissoko either. So there you have it. The good thing is Rob Williams remains on the team, which means you have a legitimate backup, which is what you need behind Donovan Clingan. I almost call him Donovan Congan. But Donovan Clingan's there. You need someone to back him up. And with the loss of, Duop Reef and, of course, Young Hansen not really being ready to contribute large minutes, it's good to have Williams there because you're going to need him the rest of the stretch run. So I like where the Blazers sit. With the other teams, too, keep this in mind. I can guarantee you that the Blazers will be a part of the postseason on some level. They're definitely going to be in the play-in. So that's cool. The Blazers getting a sniff of, postseason play. But you just look at the rest of the teams that are hovering down there. Dallas, Memphis, Utah. None of those teams are going to be able to overtake Portland and leap them into the 10th spot, which is where Portland currently sits. And I do believe this. I still believe it today. The Blazers, 5 games under 500. They will finish the season above 500. If you just look at the players they have coming back, and on top of that, the schedule that remains with 31 games to play, I have no doubt they're going to finish the season on a hot note, and they'll finish above 500. So I guess what I'm trying to say is props to Joe Cronin. He addressed the most important need heading into the trade deadline and brought in a guy that can shoot over 42% from downtown. Denny Avdia, unlikely going to play tomorrow. They just want to make sure he gets enough rest and that back is right. But the good news is this. The team's getting healthy at the right time. The schedule's lightening up at the right time. And we're going to get them post-All-Star break with just under 30 games to play, and we'll be able to see them at their best in that stretch run. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We'll focus in on the Super Bowl coming up next, and then we'll go full hoops at 4 with Sean Highkin in studio and at 5 with Chris Burkhardt in studio. I'll also share with you a headline that I saw from the New York Times that is quite troubling. In fact, it's not something I thought I would ever see in my life. I'll let you know what that is. And then I'll share with you my thoughts on some of the big winners and losers from the trade deadline in the NBA. I mean, when it's all said and done, I still think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to win the championship because they're head and shoulders above everybody else. But I think the Knicks are going to be fascinating. I'm a big fan of Nikola Vucevic. I'm excited for him to have a chance to go to Boston and be in the playoff mix. So there'll be some fun storylines to watch in the stretch run. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll focus in on Super Bowl next. And then Sean Highkin in studio at 4. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, very happy because I just got the late okay to bring him on. And I'm jealous because he was sending me videos of him being out on golf courses in the Florida area. And, of course, here in the Northwest, we get very few opportunities during the wintertime to play golf, which means we practice indoors. Very happy to welcome my favorite guy that covers the NBA, Brad Bakken from CBS Sports. Brad, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Sure, no problem.
Dude, that was sweet, man. I can't believe your buddies actually bet you that you couldn't hit the golf cart when you were waiting to tee off, and you did. You nailed it.
Bad bet.
Bad bet.
They've seen me chipping all day too. Like they have the evidence in front of them, and they still decided to go against it.
All right. I want to start with this because we talked about it at the time. We knew it was one of the worst decisions in the history of sports. But man, that Nico Harrison trade of Luka to LA gets worse by the moment, does it not?
I know because. You have to look at this sort of two ways. If you look at the Davis trade as an extension of the Luka trade, so effectively what came back in that becomes part of the Luka trade. I mean, yeah, it's pathetic. To think that one of, the 5 best players at worst is going to return what they got from the Wizards, which is almost a cap dump. I mean, if you look at those picks that went back, they're nothing. They say first-round picks, but OKC is going to be 29 or 30, and that distant Warriors pick is top 20 protected. So that's either 21 through 30 or a second-rounder. So, yeah, you don't get much. Now, from the other standpoint is, like, the reality is the Luka trade is done, right? So you kind of can't cry over spilt milk and sort of have to operate moving forward with what you have now. And with that said, they were able to kind of turn a page and get off the Davis money and sort of officially turn the team over to Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
So they open up cap space. They give themselves some flexibility. We'll see what they do with Kyrie, if anything, in the summer. But so it's two ways of looking at it. As an extension of the Luka trade, yeah, to think that you thought that this guy was worthy of trading Luka for, and oh, by the way, that you actually find out what his actual value around the league is. It's pretty bad.
We're talking with Brad Bakken. I appreciate your insight on that. Now, I want to ask you about Giannis. You and I were communicating a couple of days ago, and you said that you had it 50-50 on whether or not he would go before the deadline or not, but you leaned summertime. You ended up being right on that. So in the end, based on what you were able to gather, what was the one thing or a couple of things that prevented it from happening now?
So, as more and more reporting came out, it sounds like they were never all that serious about doing it right now. They certainly canvassed offers. And I think what it comes down to is this. In a post-Luka world, you just can't afford, from a PR standpoint, you cannot not open up the biggest bidding war possible. Yeah. And that was always going to be in the summer. And so the reasons for that are you can go 7 years out in trades in terms of draft picks that you can trade. So that this summer, 2033 picks become available for every team that didn't already trade 2032 for the Stepien rule. So that adds an extra pick that almost every team can put into a package for Giannis. And then you have all the teams that right now aren't in the market, like a Detroit or maybe a San Antonio or a Houston, where right now they're like, we're going to see what we got. We're not going to make any crazy moves. It's been a good season so far. But if they flame out in the first round, it doesn't go how they expected. Temperatures get turned up from the ownership, and suddenly these teams that actually have the best packages, Houston has the best package, Detroit controls all its first-round picks for the future, I think all 7 years out. So these teams that actually have the best packages weren't in the market right now. They may become in the market in the summer, depending on how their postseason goes. Just the Miami Heat, just as an example, they're one of the highly reported teams that were interested. They have 2 tradable first-round picks right now. When the offseason comes, they have 4. So it's a big 2 picks and 4 picks is an entirely different package. And that's just one example of a team that's going to have a much greater package to offer in the summer. So, why not wait?
All right. It's interesting. There are some parallels, too, where, Dame never really wanted to leave Portland, but did. And I get the sense, too, and I think maybe you have as well, that Giannis isn't really sold on the idea of leaving Milwaukee. Like, he does like it there in a small market.
He does like it. I mean, I think there's some of, a little bit of thin skin happening here. Well, I just don't think he wants to be the bad guy. I'm not saying he doesn't like Milwaukee, and if he had his druthers, he would stay there. But I think one of the bigger factors here is he doesn't want to be perceived as the guy. He even sent out a tweet afterwards today saying, the real superstars don't chase, they attract, or something like that, which is, sort of an underhand dig at like the Durants and the guys that have gone off chasing things. But I think that he cares maybe a little bit too much what people think. So I think that he doesn't want to be perceived that way. And there's a danger in that because, look, if he really means it, and the Bucks don't have to be super contenders for him to stay, if they just kind of have to appease him enough and he ultimately wants to be there so badly that they don't have to go over the moon for him, they just have to make it palatable, and he's really going to stay under those circumstances, then fine. But if he wants a championship contender, the Bucks can't do it. And so they couldn't have done it when they got Miles Turner. Okay, they traded Damian Lillard, and so what he's doing by dipping his toe in the water here and trying to not look like the bad guy and keeping this sort of false hope alive is he's making them do desperate things, like, somebody that if you're going to break up with somebody, don't give them false hope, and then they start trying to make themselves more attractive to you, and they go even deeper in the hole. They're paying Dame to play for somebody else. They're paying Miles Turner $100 million. They do all of this so that he'll stay. And then what now? In the summer, they're going to get the 4th overall pick and then trade that too for some other middling star to finish 7th in the East. So he's sort of stringing them along and forcing them to make desperate moves that don't make sense long term, that can't put them in a position to actually compete. But he's sort of forcing them to do it because he won't just say, I'm out. So we're really going to find out how serious he is that he wants to stay in Milwaukee, because if he is and he's willing to play on a team that's going to be a 5 seed at best and, fight their ass off to get out of the first round, okay. But if he wants a contender, he's going to have to leave there. And then all this false hope that he's given the Bucks for all this time and forced all these desperate moves to be made on the 10% chance that he might stay is going to end up crippling the franchise even more.
Very interesting. I've been dying to ask you about Denny Avdia because you're a hoop head, and I know you watch a lot of basketball. What are your thoughts on Denny and his transformation into a budding superstar in the NBA?
And if anything, the Wizards at the deadline, people were kind of up in arms like that they got Anthony Davis. I don't understand that because they didn't give up anything to get him, really. And so, to get Denny, that was a huge score for the Blazers. That's the one the Wizards should be, really worried about. That one got away. He is a relentless driver. I'd have to look at the numbers. I haven't looked at him recently, but he's got to be up near the league lead in drives per game. He gets into the paint, and that stat more than anything in the NBA or close to it in terms of what offensive guys are looking at. Paint touches. How often are you getting 2 feet in the paint and collapsing the defense is like kind of everything. And Denny is about as dependable as anybody not named Giannis or Cade Cunningham or Shea of getting into the paint and forcing a collapse. You look at the numbers that he's putting up. He's a star. And I thought he was going to get kind of screwed on the All-Star because of Portland's record and just sort of being out of the national consciousness to a large degree. But I was glad that the coaches put him on. It's tough in the West. There's so much competition for those spots. There was Kawhi Leonard could have made it over him. I thought he was going to get screwed, but that's a major, major score for the Blazers, who I think are in a super good spot. They've got a lot of young guys to be excited about. Everyone loves Kamara. Everybody loves Klingon. Shaedon Sharpe, I've had my eyes on him for a couple months. He's really turned a corner in terms of being more efficient as a shooter. And who knows what will happen with Scoot. But with those guys in place, with Denny, and then, you've got these picks that you traded for Dame or you got back in the Dame trade. You got Dame back anyway. They're in a pretty good spot. So with Denny leading the charge, I think Sharpe is emerging as kind of a second guy to go with him. I like where the Blazers are at. Interestingly, I think the Blazers are the one team that the Bucks probably would have pulled a deadline trigger move on for Giannis. I really think that because they control the Bucks picks, and there's no more valuable picks to have than your own, because then you can tank your way in to the picks that you want. If you don't control your own picks, that this idea of sort of slow playing it and tanking, it goes out the window because you don't even own your own picks. So
Yeah.
I think with Portland having control of Milwaukee's picks, I think had Giannis said, you know what, I'll re-sign in Portland, I think that was the one team that actually Milwaukee might have moved on at the deadline. But Giannis obviously didn't give the green light.
All right, when you look around the league post-deadline, what jumps out? Did anyone make themselves a lot better with the playoffs around the corner? Like, was there anyone that you thought did a really bad job or a great job? What stood out to you?
Well, the best team that came out of this was the Pacers, but it's not for this year. I mean, they let Milwaukee do the desperate thing and take Miles Turner off their hands. They conceded to the gap year and then replaced Turner with a better center in Zubac with about 20 minutes to go in the trade deadline. That's a fantastic move. The Pacers are going to be ready to roll next year. I think that was the best move of the deadline, but it's not going to be for this year. You know, I like the Jazz moving on Jaren Jackson. I think if you look at the Jazz, their offense is already top 10. The defense is what's holding them back. And the defense is really only bad this year because Walker Kessler went out. So now next year you're going to bring Walker Kessler back and Jaren Jackson in a league that is starting to prioritize size again. You're going to run out these three big men, with Markkanen being the other one, and Keontae George and the evolution of him. I think that's the main thing that allowed the Jazz to pull the trigger on a deal like this. Is they when it was just Markkanen and you're like, what else do we have? It was sort of like, God, let's get off Markkanen and get some value for him. But when a second guy comes along like Keontae George has this year, now it's like, oh, let's actually make an aggressive move. I think the leap of Keontae George is what gave that front office the confidence to say, oh, we're actually closer than we think to being really relevant in the Western Conference. So, they're going to start next year with a great offense and now a great defense. So I love that move. I actually loved it on both sides. Memphis getting 3 picks back. They now have 13 picks in the next 7 years. So they're taking the OKC route. Let's pile up picks and then let everything develop internally, build around Edey, build around Coward. And so I like what they did. The Bulls interest me because they get Ivy and they get Dillingham. So they made themselves available for this sort of, I like to call them second draft guys. These guys that were supposed to be like stars right away. The Wolves gave up a lot for Dillingham to get him in the first place, and Ivy was a top 5 pick, I believe, and was supposed to be, but that he's sort of faded out with Cunningham and everything that's going on in Detroit. So you get this second chance at these really good guys. But then I look at the other side of the Bulls, and I'm like, Jesus, they've had DeRozan, Caruso, Vucevic, Zach LaVine, now Kobe White. All of these guys at one point or another could have attracted one, if not multiple first-round picks. They hold on to them all too long. So here goes Vooch and Kobe White yet again for no first-round picks in return. They get Colin Sexton and I forget who bought Anthony Simons. So on the one hand, I do like what Chicago did in getting a second chance at some of these guys that could pop. They got them at low risk. But I also, I think it's a warning to a lot of these teams. The Warriors did it with Kuminga. He had a lot of value at one point, but they wait so long, they end up getting Porzingis, who's like been sick for the last 18 months, played 14 games this year, only played 42 games. So they have to take him at like no value. So it's a very fine line how long you hold on to your prospects before they really kind of lose their value.
All right, you can read him at CBS Sports. It's Brad Botkin here on the Rip City Drive. Enjoy your golfing days, my friend. I appreciate it. And let's get ready for the stretch run. It should be a fun one.
Okay, thanks, Chad.
You got it. There's Brad Botkin. That guy's awesome. Well-connected, great insight, and I'm very happy he was able to jump on board. All right, we'll come back on the Rip City Drive. Sean Highkin going to join me in studio coming up at 4. I will share with you the most disturbing headline I've seen in quite some time up next, and we'll give you some insight on the big game coming up on Sunday with the Hawks and Patriots. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Rip City Radio text line is 88528. Also, it has been brought to my attention that because I care about people, we're going to be able to help you get to a Blazers game this weekend against the Memphis Grizzlies. So we're going to do that later in the show. You got the Rip City Drive. Yeah, sometimes social media, most of the time, social media is a crazy place. I put out a quote tweet to Kevin Durant, who had never heard a Bad Bunny song. And I was like, yeah, I've never heard of Bad Bunny, never heard a song from Bad Bunny, and I'm not interested in the Super Bowl halftime show. They're not targeting people like me for their halftime show, and I'm okay with that. That's no problem. I'm just not familiar with Bad Bunny. And so I put that out there, and these are the type of comments that drive me mad. Britton Taylor reached out and said, and this is directed towards me, people like you are more upset about Bad Bunny performing in the Super Bowl than they are about our president being a pedophile or innocent people being murdered by ICE in Minneapolis. Well, what you have to understand, Britton, and I explained this to him, I am a sports talk radio host. My job is to share my thoughts, my takes on sports and the things that surround sports. I'm not a political commentator. I don't host a political talk show. So I don't talk about the issues. No one cares what I have to say about ICE, any of the corrupt elites who are bankrupting our country, or the fact that a communist is now running New York. No one cares about my thoughts on that. My job is to share my weak takes on sports, and so I will continue to do that. Now, I did get this, and people are wanting my take on this, and I don't want to share any thoughts on this. This is one of the most disturbing headlines. And keep in mind, I used to ski a lot when I lived in Colorado, but I had no idea that this would actually help you be better at ski jumping. This is from the New York Times. Reports have surfaced before the Winter Olympics that allege ski jumpers are injecting their penises with hyaluronic acid to fly farther. The World Anti-Doping Agency has vowed to investigate. Now, I am mad that someone sent that to me. I did not know that was happening, nor did I care that that was happening, nor did I know that injecting anything into your member would help you fly farther. I didn't even know what hyaluronic acid was. So let's just head over to Rabbi Google and find out what's going on. Hyaluronic acid is a natural, gooey substance found in the skin, joints, and connective tissues that binds to water, up to 1,000 times its weight, to provide hydration, elasticity, and lubrication. It is primarily used in skincare, serums, and creams for anti-aging and moisturizing, as well as injections for joint health, osteoarthritis, and dry eye relief. Benefits include plumper skin, reduced wrinkles, faster wound healing, and improved joint mobility. It is safe for all skin types and generally free of side effects, though high molecular weight forms may sit on the surface while low molecular weight versions penetrate deeper. Okay, so basically it's a benefit to skin care, joint health, wound healing, eye care, and so on. This is what I know. I am never going to inject anything into that. And I never knew that someone would want to inject anything into that, or that injecting something into that could help you fly farther. But my thought is like, just leave them alone. If they're willing to take a needle into the crank to be better for their country, then so be it. That is a disturbing story. That's a disturbing headline. And I don't even like saying injecting into their penises on the radio. Creepy. Who would think a needle? I don't like shots. No one does. I didn't like it when they inserted those long needles into my wrist for the IV when I got my colonoscopy. And I don't like having my blood drawn. But I can guarantee you that no one's ever getting a needle that close to my da-da-da-da. It's not happening. Not doing it. Horrible. Anyways, we got the big game coming up on Sunday, Hawks and Patriots. I hope no one is injecting anything into their member for the Super Bowl in the hopes they might score more touchdowns. But I did ask Brink about the Patriots. Gosh, I'm so twisted up from the headline that now I'm slurring my words. I'm nervous after reading that. Needles. Hey, you should inject this into that. Why? You'll fly farther. Okay, I'm in. Well, Alex Brink shared his thoughts on the Pats defensive front, and we're going to hear from Hugh Millen as well. This is one of the keys in the matchup. Here's Brink on that Patriots' defensive front and some of the issues they can cause.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Patriots in general defensively in the playoffs have been fantastic, right? Obviously, they were really high scoring during the season, which, may have had more to do with, the teams are playing in their division and things like that. But then they get to the playoffs and you see the defense playing really well. And, when you got a guy, say, like Milton Williams that has experience in the Super Bowl with the Eagles, he's been fantastic when he's healthy for the Patriots this season. He's a real difference maker. They can really cause some problems. I mean, that entire defensive line could cause some problems for, a Seahawks offensive line that is solid and has certainly been better this season. But, when the Seahawks offense has struggled, it has been about that offensive line.
All right, the other big question, the Patriots left tackle Will Campbell has been struggling, and he could be an open door on that side of the offensive line, and maybe the Hawks will have great success against Will Campbell. I asked Brink how you help a guy like Will who's struggling at the left tackle spot.
Yeah, a couple different ways. You can, you can certainly change and adjust play calling so that you're staying ahead of the chains. Like, you really just want to avoid third and long, right? And or drop back pass on downs like first down. So you're trying to, throw screens, run the football, quick passing game as much as you can. When you take shots, you're hoping that they're protected with play action, and you've got extra guys, whether it be tight ends or fullbacks in there that can assist. And then in general, if you do get in some of those drop back pass scenarios, you utilize the tight end and the running backs to maybe chip on them a little bit. You find ways to send the protection that way, so maybe there's an extra lineman that can be involved. There's plenty of ways to do it. You just remember that you're sacrificing, right, somewhere else down the line, down the food chain of offense.
Yeah.
When you're trying to protect one player. And that would be, I would imagine, the challenge for Josh McDaniels as he's thinking about game planning.
All right, there's Alex Brink, 503-248-0620. I will get Brink and Hugh Millen's prediction for you before the end of the day. But looking forward to the matchup. And we'll go in depth tomorrow. Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager from Spirit Mountain Casino, will be with me at 3:20, and then Bino, Fox Sports Radio, at 4:20. I'll be down at Spirit Mountain Casino. It's a packed house. Seahawk fans are rabid, and they've gone wild. So they're taking over Spirit Mountain Casino this weekend for the big Super Game party. I'll be down there hosting it, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, Dick Hammer, just so you know, I'm not being juvenile, is the grandfather of Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold. Dick Hammer is a former USC athlete, also was one of the Marlboro men. From the 360 in regard to the Olympic story I just shared, hey, Chad, Dick Hammer sure wouldn't inject his unit with that crap. My guess would be you're right on that. I just want to know, do we have an expert on that? How exactly does injecting your unit with hyaluronic acid help you fly further? And I used to see those big ramps. They had them at Winter Park when I lived there. And I was pretty gutsy and crazy when I was young and didn't really worry about getting hurt when I was skiing. But there's no way you get me to go down one of those ski jump ramps. That is some crazy stuff. Crazy, crazy. Now, I've always wanted to do it. Like I see with those Olympic training centers that they have where you do you practice the ski jumps and then you land in that big pool of foam. Like I would do that because I know at least I would land and not kill myself. But whew, I've always thought the ski jumpers, that takes some big time going at. All right, 503-248-0620. They're fearless. That's why they're willing to put needles into their crank. I'm just not willing to go that far. I am a team player up to a point, but when you ask me to do that, I'm out. Sorry. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, when we come back, Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, will be in studio, and we'll break down the deadline, and we'll take a look at the Blazers. Also, great news, Scoot Henderson to make his debut tomorrow. was a hack job. Like someone got hacked. All right, it's now 4 o'clock. NBA trade deadline is coming past. Portland's move came Sunday when they acquired Vic Krejci from the Hawks. As of now, no moves to open up space for City Sissoko or Caleb Love. They're two-way players. Elsewhere, the Pacers sent Ben Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, and picks to the Clippers for Ivica Zubac and forward Kobe Brown. Warriors have dealt Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield to the Hawks for Kristaps Porzingis. Jose Alvarado headed to the Knicks in exchange for Dalen Terry. And the Lakers send Gabe Vincent and a second-round pick to the Hawks for Luke Kennard. Sean Highkin is going to join me next in studio to talk deadline. Super Bowl 60, Sunday at Levi Stadium. It's going to be on NBC and Peacock. Hawks remain a 4.5-point favorite. That total is at 45.5. Trailblazers will host the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow night at Moda Center. The first of back-to-back games at home against the Grizz. Tip-off at 7. Chris Burkhardt with Game Day at 5 on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Scoot Henderson makes his debut for the season tomorrow. All right, he is our Trailblazer insider. He is with Rose Garden Report and very happy to have him in studio for the next hour. In fact, he was so kind that he reached out to me a few days ago and he goes, hey, how about I come in studio at 4 o'clock on trade deadline day? I was like, that's a good idea, Sean, and he's in studio right now. What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm really well. I always enjoy this time of year because there's so many things going on. Super Bowl's coming up on Sunday. The trade deadline was today. And I mean, just in general, when I look at what the Blazers did, Joe Cronin went out, addressed their biggest need, which was three-point shooting, and I thought made a very smart move. We all like Dewap Reef, and his teammates beloved him, but he wasn't going to play for the rest of the year, so you move him out along with a couple of future seconds, and you bring back a guy that's a 42% shooter from three. He's going to be very helpful over the stretch run as they make this move towards a plan. So I like where the Blazers sit today after everything that went down.
Yeah, it's the same thing I said on Tuesday, the last time we talked after they made that trade. They were the worst three-point shooting team in the league, and they still are. And they got a 6'8" guy who's a career 40% three-point shooter for a guy that, as much as, again, everybody on the team loves WAP. He's out for the rest of the season. He was going to be a free agent this summer. Probably not a part of the long-term plans, given that they've drafted. He was not playing that much this season anyway. He was kind of a situational big. They drafted centers the last 2 years in the first round with Donovan Clingan and Young Hansen. So if you can turn, especially now that he was out for the season, he wasn't going to play the rest of the year. If you can turn that into a guy who does fill a positional need and fills a skill set need on the roster and addresses one of their weaknesses, it's pretty hard not to like that deal.
All right, so I think the biggest surprise amongst the majority of Blazer fans I have heard from, the conventional wisdom going into the deadline was Portland at some point would have to do something to open up a roster spot so they could convert either Caleb Love or City Sissoko or both. Up to this point today, nothing has happened on that front. So what's your read on that situation?
Well, going into the last couple of weeks, I kind of also thought that they were going to have to do that because both of those guys have been so important to them being able to stay afloat as they've had all these injuries. You saw how much Caleb Love was playing. He was even starting a few games while Drew Holiday was out for a couple of months. And then City Sissoko has been a starter for a decent amount of the season and has played, big minutes when Jeremy Grant was out, when Denny Avdia has been out, when other guys have been out. I think there's still a chance that City Sissoko ends up getting converted to a standard contract, because I think there's still a need for what he does and, positionally and, versatility-wise. And the other thing is that if they do make the playoffs, two-way guys aren't eligible to play in the playoffs. So you want to have the ability to use somebody like him in the playoffs if you need to, or somebody gets in foul trouble. With Caleb Love at this point, I just don't know if that's really in the cards, because as we found out earlier this afternoon, Scoot Henderson is going to play tomorrow against the Grizzlies. Blake Wesley just came back. They've got Drew Holiday. Like, do they really need a fourth I guess, ostensibly point guard. Do they, as good as Caleb has been at times, and there are a few games that he's won them over the course of this stretch, but is that, do you really need to go out of your way to create a roster spot for a guy that's, now there's suddenly a logjam at that position? I don't know if you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say based on the current roster with those guys coming back, as you mentioned, you've got the logjam at guard and Denny Avdia,
Right,
who is a primary facilitator for this team. You don't need Caleb Love, and that's not to take away from anything that he's done. But City Sissoko, yeah, I can make a strong case that you need that guy's body on the roster. So if we just do simple mathematics based on the roster makeup, wouldn't it be – I mean, it's got to be Matisse Thybulle is the most likely candidate to be moved out to move Sissoko in and convert him.
That would be the most logical thing when you think about the fact that, A, Matisse is in the final year of his contract, so he's not, a long-term guy. He's played 19 games combined over the last 2 seasons. He played 15 games last year, missed most of the year with that ankle injury.
Yeah.
He tore the ligament in his thumb in October.
Yeah.
Had the surgery on that, recovered from that, and then he had this knee tendinopathy that he's been dealing with since then. Hasn't played, don't really know when he's going to play. I think that would be logically the guy that it would make the most sense to try to do something with. But, the thing there is the Blazers are about $1.4 million below the luxury tax. So it would be kind of tight, even if they just cut one of these guys, whether it's, Matisse or Rayon Rupert or whoever, to be able to sign someone like City Sissoko to a standard contract and stay below the luxury tax, which they're not going to go into the luxury tax for a play-in team to sign a two-way guy. Like, that's just not going to happen. So you would have to have a scenario where Matisse and his agent are willing to give a little bit of money back to help the Blazers out, which has been done before, and that's like a pretty common thing. DeAndre Ayton gave some money back this summer he agreed to the buyout with the Blazers. He gave back about $10 million. But I think he knew when he gave that money back, it was right before free agency. He was probably going to make that money back from somebody else, and he'd be able to still get all his money, and he ended up doing that with the Lakers. If Matisse Thybulle, even if it's just like the amount of money that's like the veterans minimum, it's like $1 or $2 million that he would be asked to give back, is another team going to probably sign him for the rest of the season, given that he hasn't played most of this season? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So can you help me with the math on that? So what are the Blazers right now? Like 1.4 million under the luxury tax. So how much, what do you, if you convert Sissoko, does he get the full veterans minimum, or is it on a prorated basis?
It's prorated. You could do some stuff like when they did WAP a couple years ago, because remember, he was on a two-way, and then when Robert Williams went down for the season with the knee injury that first year, WAP ended up basically being their primary backup center because Robert Williams was out for the whole year, and he ended up playing a much bigger role than anybody anticipated. The way they did that was they basically gave him the full amount of a full season when they did his contract around the All-Star break when he was about to run out of two-way days. They gave him what would have been the full amount for a veterans minimum, like around $2 million. And they called that basically like a signing bonus. Like they kind of gave him a little bit of extra, and then they, but the rest of the contract was just, from there, the same way. But they could have just given him like the prorated amount. I think with Sissoko, if they just waive somebody and don't have to, don't get any money back in a buyout or anything like that, they'd have to do just the prorated amount, and then you never know whether somebody's agent is willing to agree to that or what.
Yeah. So what is the deal with Matisse? Is he going to play? What's your best guess? Do you think he plays again this year?
Until he actually plays, my guess is always going to be no, because it just has happened so rarely over the last couple of years.
How much longer do you think Chris Murray's going to be out? Any read on that?
I think he's doing okay. I don't know. Maybe that could be like maybe an after the All-Star break situation.
I know lumbar strains hurt like
they do. They do. And Tiago Splitter said today that everybody except Dame participated in practice. So
good.
It doesn't seem like anybody is just on the shelf or just completely not able to do anything. But it's just, there
is Matisse participating? So he included Matisse in that.
Tiago said today everybody but Dame did it. Not everybody was full participant, but everybody did something.
Okay, well, here's what I know. If Matisse and Murray are close to returning and they're both going to play the rest of the year, you don't have to do anything with Sissoko. But if you know that those two guys are going to be missing more action and that Matisse is unlikely to play the rest of the year, then I try to get something done to bring Sissoko on board. Do you need Sissoko if Murray and Tease are going to play the rest of the way?
Not necessarily, but I also think Sissoko has been good enough to earn a spot in the rotation either way. But then it's also just, it's a minutes crunch. Like,
Where's
those
it gonna
minutes have
come
to
from?
come from somewhere. And, that's why with Caleb Love, I just don't really see it happening because now, they just got Blake Wesley back. They've had Drew Holiday back for a few weeks. Now Scoot's coming back. Scoot's minutes have to come from somewhere.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm happy for Scoot.
Yeah.
I know the team's looking forward to him getting back. And, it just sucks that he had that hamstring injury because you and I have both heard that they were very happy with his work throughout the course of the summertime, and they were excited to see what he was going to be able to do this year in this new, attack that they've formed in terms of playing fast.
Yeah, and when you look at just, the skill set, I mean, you look at just how good of a fit Blake Wesley has been.
Oh, yeah.
With, at the beginning of the season and then for the last week or so since he came back from the foot injury, somebody who's able to just push the pace and be kind of disruptive on defense. If they got that much of a boost from Blake Wesley coming back, we all can agree that, as much as like Blake Wesley's been like a nice pickup, nice story, who's more talented and has like a higher upside playing that style, Scoot Henderson or Blake Wesley?
Yeah.
Scoot. So getting Scoot back to play, that type of role, like that just raises the ceiling so much, whether it's this season or, beyond. But it's going to be good to have him back.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think the Blazers are in a good spot right now. We know, and based on some of the other moves that were made by teams who are right there below them in the play-in race, they're going to be a part of the play-in. So I have no doubt about that whatsoever. What I'm actually excited about is that we might get like 25, 26 games of this team actually being healthy and seeing what they're able to do. But more importantly, being able to play more of the way they intended to play at the beginning of the year with all their guys available.
Well, the one I'm really curious about, at least in the short term, after the All-Star break, I think you're right. What Thiago said today about Denny Avdia, who obviously is the most important guy on this entire team, he did practice today. He probably will not play tomorrow. So if he doesn't play tomorrow, I would think he also won't play Saturday in the back-to-back against Memphis. And then you don't know whether, whenever he does play, is he going to look like the guy that he's been most of the season or the guy that he was in those last two games in Washington and New York where the back was clearly bothering him.
Yeah.
If you have like a fully healthy or at least able to gut through the pain and play the way that he's been playing all season version of Denny Avdia with everybody else that matters being able to play.
Yeah.
The 25, 26 game sample size of that after the All-Star break could be pretty good.
No question about it. I'm with you. I think you and I are in the same boat. If you got to rest Denny over the next couple of games, or if he only gets a little bit of action in right before the All-Star break, whatever it takes to get him right, because this team, and I think we saw it really in the last couple of games, he's so good, and they're so reliant on what he does that they need him out there on the floor. So if that means you got to rest him a couple more games to make sure that back's right, then do it. Whatever it takes.
I think having Scoot will help a little bit just because you've got another guy that can really handle, can make plays, can push the pace a little bit. But Scoot also is coming off a hamstring injury where he's missed 2/3 of the season, so he's going to have to get back into shape. I don't think that's going to be smooth right away.
All right, if you want to jump in and if you have any questions, 503-248-0620. Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, in studio, and we're breaking down the NBA trade deadline. The Blazers play the first of back-to-back games against the Grizzlies tomorrow night, 7 o'clock tip from Moda Center, which you'll hear right here on Rip City Radio 620. All right, Sean Highkin, very happy to have him in studio. Kind enough to have him in studio. Is your microphone working? The microphone box
I
is
think
not
we're
working?
good now.
All right,
I
good.
think we're good.
Don't worry, dude. You had the same look I've had before where I'm like literally like jamming
Well, like
my
the light
index
just
finger.
wasn't coming on. I think we're good now, though.
No, it's good. I can hear you just fine.
Brenden just gave me the thumbs up from the control room, so I think we are good.
Don't worry, I know that look. Sean was giving me that panicked radio look in his eye. I kind of enjoyed that. Well, hey, if you're looking back now the last couple of years, and I'm not saying this is not my Blazer fandom coming out. I just think Joe Cronin's done a really good job when you look at what he inherited and the job he took over to get them to where they're at now with the cupboard being restocked with assets where he's got things to work with now moving into the future. I think that's great.
When people ask me to assess, whether I think Joe has done a good job or not, or whether he's the right, I think the dividing line is July 1st, 2023, which was the day that Dame requested the trade.
Yeah.
I think before that, when, they didn't do really anything big at the 2023 deadline, and they actually traded away Josh Hart and a couple of other guys and kind of took a step back. And then Joe kept talking very, very publicly about we're going to take big swings. We're going to go all in and put a contender around Dame. And then when they got the 3rd overall pick in the lottery, he was, said the same thing, this is all about building a contender around Dame. And then obviously they didn't end up doing that. At that point, I kind of was thinking, I don't know, is this guy out of his depth a little bit? And then, it was just kind of, it seemed like it was kind of shaky. But the thing that really just turned it around for me in terms of my evaluation of how he has managed everything was the way he handled the Dame trade.
Yeah.
Because, that whole summer, it was just, Dame's people were saying Miami, Miami, Miami. You only want to go to Miami. Don't care anybody. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. Won't play anywhere else. And Miami's offer, or the stuff they theoretically could have offered, was frankly not what it should have been for a guy of Dame's caliber at the time.
Yes.
And Joe, hung in there, didn't really listen to the stuff that everybody was trying to say publicly all summer, tuned all that stuff out. Took it until the week before training camp and got what was clearly a much better deal. And since then, I think pretty much everything he's done has been, you can look at all of it and say that it makes sense. And then, you look at it into this upcoming summer, even with Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday making as much money as they're making, and with the Shaedon Sharpe and Tumani Kamara extensions kicking in next summer or next season, their books are in pretty good shape. They're still basically at the salary cap, not even close to the luxury tax. Most of their young guys, Scoot Henderson's still going to have 1 more year on his rookie deal. Donovan Klingen's still going to have 2 more years left on his rookie deal. The extensions that they signed Shaedon and Tumani to are pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
The contract that they got Denny on that trade, by the time they have to pay him of what he's actually worth, which is, probably 5-6 times what he's making right now on his current contract, that's the same summer that Drew and Jeremy's contracts come off the books, so they're going to be able to just kind of cycle into that without having to make any desperate salary cutting trades. Once they get off of whatever this Chicago thing ends up being, if they're able to, if they make the playoffs this year, give the pick to Chicago, then they have all their picks plus the Bucks picks and swaps and the Orlando one that they got from moving back in this past draft. Yeah, they're in good shape. And the fact that, they correctly identified Denny Avdia as somebody that was undervalued and, good role player in DC his first 4 years in the league. They kind of thought there was maybe a little bit of upside there that wasn't tapped. And so they paid a little bit more for, in 2 first-round picks than a lot of people maybe would have done at the time. That one's worked out about as well as anybody thought. So, yeah, I think he's got them in pretty good shape going forward. They don't have really bad long-term contracts on the books that are going to completely mess up things they want to do. They do have a couple of veterans making a lot of money, but not in a way or for a length of time that's going to mess up other stuff. They've got their draft capital. They kind of can do whatever they want, or they have the ability to, I think, do whatever they need to do, in the short term or in the long term.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that 100%. And it will be nice because they'll get a taste of the play-in or some type of postseason, but that's how it would work. If they make the playoffs, that pick would convey to Chicago,
Yes,
correct?
but only if they actually make the playoffs. Like
yeah,
if
the
they
play-in doesn't count.
if they make it to the play-in and then lose in the play-in and don't get an actual 7-game playoff series as the 7 or 8 seed, then they keep the pick.
What are you hearing about the draft this upcoming year compared to the last couple of years?
I mean, I think there's three guys at the top of this draft. There's Darren Peterson, there's AJ DeBanza, there's Cam Boozer. If you get one of those, like there's 3 guys that are kind of on the same. People put them in different orders. There's those guys, and then there's one other, Caleb Wilson from Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a decent number 4. And then I've kind of the main thing I've heard is that like this draft is not as deep as this past draft. Because you look at this current rookie class where, obviously Cooper Flagg's been awesome. And then, you go like basically the whole lottery, VJ Edgecombe, Dylan Harper, Con Knipple.
Coward,
yeah. There's like 7 or 8 guys that have just been awesome this year. And like the next year's class might not be that deep, but at the top it's comparable.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I like where the Blazers sit. Elsewhere in the NBA, I guess one of the teams that would jump out, not for this year, but Indiana, a very shrewd move to go out and get Zubats, and they're positioning themselves, when healthy next year, to be a threat in the East.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at this past, this Pacers team, obviously, when Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles in Game 7 of the Finals, everybody kind of knew that this was going to be a gap year for them. So they didn't re-sign Miles Turner. They let him go to Milwaukee. And now they basically got a Miles Turner replacement for next year. I mean, everything they're doing is for next year with him. And, they've still got Siakam. They've still got Nembhard. They've still got a lot of their other guys. If Tyrese Halliburton comes back and looks, and he's somebody that I'm not that worried about him coming back from a torn Achilles, because he's not somebody who
relies on above the rim activity.
Exactly. Like he's kind of, a floor general. Like he's somebody, like I think he's going to be fine, especially because he had the injury in June and he's not going to play till the following October. So that's over a year that he's going to be able to, rehab and then if they, assuming the thing that's interesting is that, this trade, I don't know if you saw the full details of this trade, but, one of the picks that they gave up is this year's pick protected 1 through 4 and 10 through 30. So basically, if this pick is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, it goes to the Clippers. So the Pacers, as much as, they've done what they need to do this year, they're near the bottom of the standings. They're in a good position. They need to jump into the top 4 of the lottery, or else they're not going to have a draft pick. But even if they don't have a draft pick, you basically, you're bringing back Tyrese Halliburton. You've still got all those other role players, and you've got Ivica Zubac now to kind of fill that Miles Turner spot. Yeah, they're going to be in pretty good shape, especially when you look at the East, the rest of the East. None of these other teams in the East are look like they're just going to be like completely unbeatable. There's no Oklahoma City or San Antonio in the East.
Yeah, no question about it. Elsewhere, I thought Boston was pretty shrewd to be able to go out and acquire a center in Vucevic, but also rework their books to where now their money's in order. That's pretty impressive.
Right, and I mean, I think you could have kind of seen it go either way with what Boston was going to do, because I think everybody assumed, just like with Indiana, Tatum tears his Achilles in the playoffs. People kind of assumed, they're just going to take a step back. They're going to try to get a good draft pick and, not even really be a factor. But Boston easily could win the East this year.
Oh, yeah.
They're
playing good basketball.
Like with the way that Jaylen Brown is playing, and, they still have these other, like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. They still have all these other guys. They've been pretty good. And now, their roster makes a little bit more sense positionally. Simons, they probably weren't going to keep long-term anyway. I don't know if Vucevic is a long-term guy for them at his age, but positionally makes a little bit more sense. Like they were throwing out like Neemias Queta as like their starting center. Like Vucevic, you would think would be an upgrade on that. And, they cut a little bit of money. And so I think the Celtics, like next year, I have no idea whether Tatum's going to play or not. They were saying a month ago that he was going to play. Now you're starting to hear that maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Well, elsewhere, I'm still trying to make sense of James Harden. There are a lot of teams that have made the mistake of thinking he would help them, and he hurts them. But I do like the idea of having a guy like Harden be more available than someone like Darius Garland. Right. I just don't know what that's going to mean come playoff time for the Cavs. What's your read on that?
Well, I think it was just that Garland, obviously, I think which player would you rather have long term, Darius Garland or James Harden? All things being equal, you would rather have Garland because he's 10 years younger. But Garland's medical stuff is he has a couple of different toe injuries, and it's been as good as he is. It's been an issue, and it's something that I think they felt like, okay, as much as Harden obviously has his flaws and his playoff track record is what his playoff track record is. He plays.
Yeah.
He is available to play, and he plays, and he does what he does. And, if you're in the situation of the Cavs where it's like, look, our window is right now. We have Donovan Mitchell for a couple more years under contract. We want to really make a deep run while they don't have they're not like Oklahoma City where like all of their guys are 22 and they have this, they can just have all this runway that they can just, drag it out as long as they want. And they have this, 5-6 year runway. They kind of have to do something now. And so, you got a guy like Harden who, again, obviously a very flawed player and has a very mixed track record in playoff situations. But you feel better about him actually being able to play in the playoffs than you do about Garland. So I understand it from that standpoint.
I was impressed with Cleveland last weekend when they were in town.
Yeah.
They're one of those teams we don't get to see in person very often. But after watching them, I think they had 41 assists on 50 made field goals in the game. I'm a big fan of Jared Allen. He had a career night. But then you see other guys like Colin Gillespie, who I didn't realize how good he was until I saw him with my own eyes. Great change of direction, good body control, strong, can shoot the three. Like, Cleveland's one of those teams that can make some noise come postseason time. They're impressive.
Well, I think they're because, it was kind of rough for them the first couple months of the season.
Yeah.
After they were the 1 seed last year and, had the best record in the East. They really, over the last couple of weeks and really the last month started to turn it around a little bit. Jared Allen had literally the best game of his career in Portland. But, yeah, they absolutely could win the East because if you look at the East, there's 4 or 5 teams that could, Boston, who we just talked about, could win the East.
Yeah.
Detroit's got the best record. I really like that team. It's a deep team. Obviously, Cade is playing at an MVP level. New York, I think, is still in the mix. They were shaky there for a little bit, but they've started to, I like that Jose Alvarado pickup for them today at the deadline. Kind of a small thing, but they're still there. They seem to have figured some stuff out after things were a little bit shaky. And then I think Cleveland, you got to put in that category of teams that they could. I'm not saying they will, but none of these you go into the playoffs in both conferences. Everybody knows who the favorite is in the West. It's Oklahoma City. And I think San Antonio's pretty good. I think Denver's pretty good. Both of those teams have a chance, but it's Oklahoma City, and then there's a little gap, and then there's everybody else.
Yes. In a 7-game series, I would pick Oklahoma City against everybody.
I would too, but that gap is not there. There's 4 teams in the East where, if you told me that any of those 4 teams that I just named, Boston, Cleveland, New York, Detroit, ended up in the finals, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, because Cleveland could beat any of those other 3 teams in a 7-game series.
But they could lose to any of those other teams too.
Yeah, very interesting. It's going to be fun to watch and see how that plays out. And you're right about Detroit. I like the way they play. I like their young roster. They're physically tough. And I think that experience that they had last year in the postseason against the Knicks is going to help them this year be better prepared for those type of the physicality they're going to face.
Right. Cade is making this super leap from, good all-star. I think he's not really going to win MVP this year, but he's he's probably going to be in the top 5 of the MVP finalists this year. So he's at that level. Jalen Duren is an all-star for the first time.
He's awesome.
And then they have just these other, Isaiah Stewart is still a really solid defensive center. And then you've got Asar Thompson, you've got Ron Hall. They just have all these guys that.
The 2 rematches I need to see from last year. I need Detroit and New York in a series because that would be awesome. And I need another Oklahoma City-Denver series. That was wildly fascinating to see the Nuggets, who were really outmanned against Oklahoma City, push them to 7 games because of the greatness of Jokic and Aaron Gordon, who played a terrific series.
Well, hopefully they're healthy. Aaron Gordon still has that hamstring thing he's dealing with right now. If they don't
need him back.
If they don't have him in the playoffs, then I don't think there's really much of a shot there.
But, and Gordon's one of those late bloomers who's really blossomed into a big time player.
Thought he was kind of a good stats, bad team guy for all those years in Orlando. Then he gets to Denver, and he's the exact perfect type of power forward to put next to Jokic, who's just willing to do all the.
And the way Aaron Gordon has progressed as a 3-point shooter has been impressive. I like his game, and he's tough. Yeah. He's physically tough.
Yeah.
But you're right, they need him. Without him, they can't
Yeah.
really threaten in the West.
Right, especially I think people thought that, when they did the Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson trade, I think people thought that was going to be kind of an upgrade. That one hasn't really worked out, but
No. And I think with San Antonio, the way I look at them in my mind, they're like a wild card.
they could, yeah.
They're so dynamic with Wemby that it would not surprise me if they upset Oklahoma City and got to the finals because he's so good.
He's going to be probably the best player on the floor in any. You could make an argument like Jokic and SGA, I guess. You could make the argument for who's going to be the best player in the series in any of those. But Wemby is he's in year 3. He's already in that top 3-4 best players in the league.
There's no question. So, the other thing too that we learned about this deadline, and you and I knew this when it went down last year. I credit Dallas for just realizing where they were and what needed to be done, and so they completely got off of Anthony Davis, and they're now moving forward with Cooper Flag, which is great. But the Nico Harrison deal of Luka Doncic, it gets worse by the moment.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's so bad.
It's a tough one. I will say I think it's kind of interesting from the Wizards' standpoint, that trade, because the Wizards, we just saw a couple weeks ago, the Wizards GM Michael Winger said in a press conference when he was asked if he regrets trading Denny Avdia, he said he doesn't regret trading him because they needed to get worse and they needed to take a step back. 2 weeks later, they're trading for Trae Young and Anthony Davis, and they're clearly going to be trying to make the playoffs in the East next year with those two guys, which, as far as the availability of those guys, we'll see how that works out, but it's kind of an interesting, little reversal there.
Yeah, no question. Let's just be real. I believe that if you trade Denny Avdia, and we're seeing what he really is, it's malpractice. And what that means is that you have people in charge that couldn't see that what this guy was going to become. I'm not saying that you had to see he was going to become a superstar, but he's a darn good basketball player on a very team-friendly contract. What a great move by Joe.
You want to know what this actually kind of reminds me of?
What's that?
You want to go back to some deep, late 90s Blazers history?
Yeah.
Blazers trading Jermaine O'Neal 2 seasons into his career because he just wasn't on the same timeline as some of their other guys. And then he goes to Indiana and becomes an all-star and probably a borderline top 10 player in the league.
That's a great comparison.
That's kind of where the Wizards are with Denny Avdia now.
And the way I look at the Denny trade now is and you know this from basketball history, sometimes teams, a lot of times, you need to make a move and just get either lucky or cash in or hit the jackpot, whatever you want to call it. And the Blazers did. They made a move that has turned out to be pure gold. They've gotten a star player in the NBA, and he's still on a very team-friendly contract, and he's awesome. And he's getting better, and he's still young at 25.
That's just a credit to the Blazers, talent evaluation. If you go back, this is from the era before Mike Schmitz was working for the Blazers.
Was Avdia Mike Schmitz?
Oh, big time. Go back. He was probably Mike was probably more of a Denny guy than anybody. Literally, you go back into Mike's Twitter archives from when he was still working at ESPN, and there are tweets from 2017 that are I'm at this under-18 European championship, and there's this kid from Israel who's 16, and he's the best player here. And then, the night of the draft, when the Wizards drafted him at number 9, Mike Schmitz tweeted, Washington got the best player in the draft. So, he's been on Denny for forever, and
wow.
that's a credit. Which, sometimes that kind of stuff works out where it's you liked a guy at the time, and then he doesn't end up really becoming anything. But this is one where clearly someone in that front office liked Denny a lot from when he was a teenager, and then they saw an opportunity to get him, and they were let's just get him, even if it costs 2 first-round picks. Yeah,
the word I got on Denny earlier this week that's so exciting is he is – a lot of people don't understand this, but the role he's played this year, there's a lot of complexity to being the primary facilitator and handling the load that he has. He's getting to the rim at an alarming rate. He's getting to the foul line, and he's doing all of this while teams are game planning and scouting against him, and he's still getting off. The only guy that's had success against him is OG Anunoby.
I'm actually going to, during the break, I'm going to look and search Mike's tweets and see what his earliest mention of Denny Avdia is.
And I believe
I want to hear.
Vit Krejci was also on his radar, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Schmitz, arguably the best hire that Joe Cronin has made, and those two form quite the dynamic duo. We'll come back. Sean Highkin in studio. We're breaking down the deadline and talking some Blazers here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. like a good love ballad, though.
I'm open to checking it out.
Hey, Sean, I really do not know anything about Bad Bunny. I just found out that Bad Bunny apparently speaks Spanish. I had no idea. And then Brenden just told me that if you're into Latin love songs, I do like a good love song. Maybe I'll check out Bad Bunny for the first time during the halftime show and be like, hey, I'm down.
Chad's open to new things, folks.
All right. Sean Highkin pulled it. We're talking about Mike Schmitz, where the Blazers have made a very interesting habit. They've got a track record of targeting players that Mike Schmitz has tweeted about in his past life as an analyst for ESPN. What did you uncover about Denny Avdia?
So there's a ton of if you search Denny under Mike Schmitz's Twitter history.
He's tweeted more about Denny than anybody.
There's a lot of them. So the first one, I've just got two for you. This is the first one. This is the earliest tweet. This is from July 16th, 2018. So 2 years before he was drafted and 6 years before the Blazers traded for him when he was in the front office. This is a tweet from Mike Schmitz, quote, always a pleasure watching 17-year-old Israeli sensation Denny Avdia. Doesn't look out of place at all at the under 20 level. Elite basketball instincts and IQ with a level of poise very rare for a player his age. Very few holes in his game at 6'8". And then on draft night, which was November 18th, 2020, because remember, that was the COVID year, so like the calendar was all messed up. So like they did the bubble, and then like 2 weeks later they did the draft. Just Denny Avdia, the steal of the draft, and it was with the video of him getting drafted by the Wizards.
Amazing.
So,
yeah, he's been on him from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So who are the players now? So Vit Krejci, he's tweeted about. Denny Avdia.
Shaden, he definitely had a lot of influence. That was the first draft that he was in the front office for. And I know that he was one of the few scouts when he was still working at ESPN that actually had seen Shaden play high school games. So like he actually knew more about him than some people. Not a guy that ended up panning out, but one of the guys. Do you remember Ibu Badji from a couple of years ago, the two-way center from Senegal?
Yeah,
that was one of Mike's guys.
Interesting.
Young Hansen was not one of Mike's discoveries. It was one of their international scouts, but Mike was the one that went to China to scout him after the international scouts told him about him. So,
yeah, Mike. I talked to him after they made the selection of Hansen, and it was fascinating to go into detail about how much time they spent scouting Hansen over the course of a couple of years.
Yeah, and it was a lot of they put a lot of work into even being able to go over to China to scout a player as an NBA team front office executive. It's a little bit more involved even than any other country. Like if you want to just like go to Spain to catch a game, or you want to go to, Serbia or whatever, you can just go. You can just do it. China, you have to get all these different visas and all these different clearances and get everything cleared by the government and by the Chinese Basketball Association. It's so much more involved. Like it took them months to even get permission to even go on that scouting trip.
That's interesting. I was talking to one of the individuals on the social media team for the Blazers the other night who was from China.
Oh, Veronica?
Yes. And I asked her, I said, who is the biggest star in China, NBA-wise? Is it Hansen? And she goes, oh, he's immensely popular, and people love the Blazers, but she said it's LeBron.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
LeBron and Steph.
Yeah, LeBron and Steph. But she said LeBron is a clear number one. Steph is huge, but Hansen is immensely popular. But I found that interesting. I didn't know that. Doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know the list. But she didn't hesitate when she said LeBron.
You know what else is interesting? I think a big part of when you look at, the all-star voting returns from fan voting.
Yeah.
And how Denny Avdia got the 5th most votes of any player in the Western Conference. A big part of that obviously was Israel.
Of course.
And his own, Denny's own fans. But from what I understand, Denny is also extremely popular in China because they watch Blazer games more than any other team because of Hansen.
Interesting.
And he's the best player on the team, and so they like him because he's the best player on Hansen's team.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's a very good point. Yeah. You're right. They would watch it. And if you watch Blazer games, or if you're from China and you get into Blazer basketball because of Hansen, it would not have taken long to realize who the best player on the team is.
It's just like how when Yao Ming was playing for the Rockets, Tracy McGrady was also a huge star in China because he played with Yao.
Yeah, that's a good point. Interesting. Yeah, Avdia is great. I think it's really cool. I've talked to him about this before. You probably have too, but he does not take lightly being the beacon of light for an entire country. He loves playing for his country. And he really appreciates the love and support that he has from the different Jewish communities
Sure.
in the country, especially when he's back in the East Coast. Like, that's a huge undertaking because people here in the U.S. can't relate to that,
Right.
where you're playing for an entire country. But I think that's unique, and it's cool to see how Denny is embraced by Jewish fans.
Yeah.
And how much he loves being their beacon of light. It's cool.
Well, you saw that in I was just on this last road trip. You saw that in New York, especially.
Yes.
Which you're going to see that there more than anywhere else. But yeah, it's huge. Like anywhere you go on the road, like he's got a huge crowd of fans.
I don't know if you know what it is. I just saw this the other night, but Denny came out, and it was, I think it was on Sunday, after the game on Sunday. He came back out on the floor, and there was like a group of Jewish fans,
Sure.
and they were speaking Hebrew.
Yeah.
And they were giving love to Denny and stuff, and he was just taking a chance
Yeah.
after the game, after people had left the arena
Yeah.
to meet with them.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
No, I think he's definitely embraced that.
That's great. I love that. And I think for the Blazers now, so we're going to get a chance to see Scoot tomorrow.
Yeah.
We've got Blake Wesley back in the mix. So who's left? So it would be
Thibault, Murray.
that's it.
That's it.
Other than that, everyone else is back.
As much
and ready
as
to
either
rock.
of those guys are a factor.
Well, I just look at the schedule, assuming that they're healthy and they don't have any
Mhm.
more hiccups in that
Yeah.
department. They should win a number of games down the stretch based on schedule and availability of players.
You would think, and they do have a good opportunity this weekend because their next two games back to back are against Memphis, who, after this Jaren Jackson trade they just made, they are clearly not really caring that much about winning games the
No.
rest of the way. So this
No.
should be 2 wins for these guys this weekend.
And 2 wins you can grab without Avdia and give him more rest.
Yeah.
And then what do they have next week before the All-Star
So
break?
they've got their home against Philly on Monday, and then they have this brutal back-to-back on the Wednesday and Thursday before All-Star. They're in Minnesota Wednesday, and then they're at Utah on Thursday.
Does it make any sense to play Avdia before All-Star break?
I wouldn't, but if he wants to and the medical staff clears him, that's above my pay grade. I personally would give him until after the break off, but that's not my decision to make.
No, it's not mine either, but I'm with you. The more rest for Avdia now, the better, because if you give him the next 4 games off and then he gets to go into All-Star break without having played,
Yeah.
get the All-Star game under his belt, and then he can come back ready to rock for the stretch run.
Yeah.
Because how many games will they have left? 27 after the All-Star break?
26, I think.
26. That's still enough time to make some hay before the play-in.
Yeah.
All right. Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Highkin, Rose Garden Report in studio. Chris Burkhardt's going to join me next. Make sure you go to rosegardenreport.com and read Sean, support Sean, because he provides the best coverage of the Trailblazers in town. We'll continue with the Rip City Drive. Tomorrow, Grizzlies, Blazers, tip-off at 7. Chris Burkhardt with Game Day at 5 on your place for the Trailblazer basketball in Portland. Rip City Radio 620. All right, it's now 5 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? Chad is here. The NBA trade deadline ended at noon today. Portland's big move was Sunday when they acquired Vit Krejci from the Hawks. And so far, no moves have been announced to make space for Sidi Sissoko or Caleb Love to convert them to full-time contracts. Elsewhere, the Pacers sent Ben Mather and Isaiah Jackson and picks to the Clippers for Ivica Zubac and forward Kobe Brown. Warriors have sent Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield to the Hawks for Kristaps Porzingis. Jose Alvarado on his way to the Knicks in exchange for Dalen Terry. The Lakers have sent Gabe Vincent and a second-round pick to the Hawks for Luke Kennard. Super Bowl 60 at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara Sunday. It's going to be on NBC and Peacock. Kickoff at 3:30. Hawks remain a 4.5-point favorite with the total set at 45.5. Blazers host the Grizzlies tomorrow. 7 o'clock tip from Moda. Chris Burkhardt with Game Day at 5 live from Moda Center. Scoot Henderson will make his debut. All right, it's time to take care of people. I've got not one, but two pairs of tickets for the Trailblazers and Grizzlies for Saturday's game. The Blazers are going to play back-to-back games, one tomorrow, one on Saturday. Both pairs are going to be for the Saturday game, and so we'll give those away. We'll take care of some people right now. I think I'm going to go one with the phones and one with the text line. So we'll do that here in just a moment. But I want to make sure we get this in. Chris Burkhardt's going to join me coming up here at 5:20 to get his take on the Blazers and the deadline. So we'll do that here momentarily. But before we get to the Trailblazer tickets in just a couple of minutes, I want to get to a couple of more things that I learned about the Super Bowl yesterday. I had a chance to talk with Hugh Millen, former Washington Husky, played in the NFL for over 10 years and backed up some great quarterbacks, was a starter with New England, very familiar with the Seahawks. He's down in Santa Clara covering the game for the Seahawks angle for our sister station up in Seattle, KJR FM. And I asked him about the concerns for Seattle. You know, the majority of people I've spoken with in this area, mainly because it's, flooded with Seahawks fans, I get the sense that most Seattle fans are not particularly concerned about the game. And so I've tried to warn or caution my friends who are Seahawks fans that this matchup is probably going to be a lot tighter than what you're envisioning right now. And if you have just blindly bet underdogs in the Super Bowl of late, you've done very well. So, and I do know, based on the conversations I've had this morning, that the sharp money is on New England. But I asked Hugh Millen about the concerns for Seattle. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I would start with their lineup, their defensive tackles. I mean, they've got a couple guys that can really move. For example, Christian Barmore, he's second in the league for defensive tackles with pressures. He has 61 now. All Seahawks fans, they think Leonard Williams is, NFL All-Pro level. He only had 49. So they've got a couple guys in the middle of the defensive line that can really push things around. Particularly, I think Seattle's got a very deep team, but of their 22 starters, in my opinion, Anthony Bradford, the right guard, is probably the biggest question mark, biggest concern, probably the biggest liability. And I think there's a way to really attack inside with power. You know, Jalen Sendell, the Seahawks center, is an extremely good athlete by center standards, but not a great powerful guy. You know, like he'd win the obstacle race against other centers, but he would lose the keg toss over the pole bar. You know, so I think there's some matchup issues that potentially concern Seattle.
All right, that's Hugh Millen. I also asked him to give his prediction and how he sees the game shaken out. Here's what Hugh Millen had to say.
I would lean towards the Seahawks. I think it's going to potentially be tougher than some people think. I think I could envision Seattle going a quarter and a half where they're having a trouble with the zone pressures that Mike Vrabel's liable to bring. The Patriots have gone from 27% blitz rate in the regular season up to 41%. Seattle, through the course of the season, has had times where they've been bogged down by that. Again, I think there's a way to attack the interior of Seattle's offensive line in that regard. So I could see a muddied up game. I would actually kind of like the under. I think it's at 45.5. Maybe it's changed a little bit.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a little muddier than some people think. I think if it's an over, if the points total gets to an over, I think Seattle definitely wins.
Okay.
I think Seattle probably wins if the point total is the under. But that's the opportunity for the upset for the Patriots is a muddy game, hits the under, maybe a turnover or two, whatever it is, some gaff, and Seattle's bogged down because of zone blitzes and the inability to run against those two defensive tackles. That would be the situation where I close my eyelids and I see the Patriots winning. Probably won't happen, but it's certainly well in the realm of possibility and feasibility.
All right. I also asked Alex Brink, our college football and NFL insider, to give his prediction. So Millen is leaning Seattle in a close one. What does Brink think?
These teams are really evenly matched, both great defenses. You know, they've both been really productive on offense. And my knee-jerk reaction when it's like that, when you have good coach, you know, everything seems really even, is I lean into the quarterbacks. And I think, you know, as good as Drake May has played this year and as talented as he is, he's still a young player. He's had some struggles at times in the playoffs, and the defense has really helped him. I think Sam Darnold's experience in general really helps. I think, you know, his ability to lean into some really electric playmakers offensively really helps. The Patriots are solid. I just don't think they have that extra star power offensively. And so it's going to be a tight game. But to me, I think that's a little bit extra that maybe Seattle needs to win this thing.
And multiple people that we've spoken with, the run game is going to be important in this one. Probably more so than maybe some recent Super Bowls. But, you know, who's going to be able to create and maybe provide a little more balance in their offense? You know, the weird thing about this Super Bowl is, like, I don't get the overwhelming sense that people are jacked up on the matchup. Now, it's a bit skewed out here in the Northwest because of all the Seahawks fans, but, you know, I don't know why that is. Could it be because it's the Seahawks and Patriots? It's probably more so that we have two great stories at quarterback, but not the big stars. Like last year, we had the Eagles and Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, household names. If there were Josh Allen in the Super Bowl, you know, it's just not that big name quarterback. So I think maybe that some of the luster is off the game, but it doesn't mean the game's going to be any less fantastic. You know, I mean, I'm sure I'm no different than you. I'm looking for compelling, tight games. Like what we had last year was garbage. Philadelphia clowned them and won big time. I like games that, you know, that we get right down to the wire, where teams have to execute and make things happen. And we've had a few of those games. That overtime game with the Niners and Chiefs was terrific. All right, 503-248-0620. Are we taking line one, or do you want me to just go to our ticket giveaway? What are we doing, Brenden? Oh, Chris Burkhardt's on hold? Well, why is he calling right now? Gosh, he just makes stuff up all the time. He hits me up. He's like, I'm not going to be able to make it. Then he's like, I'll call at 5:20, but he's calling at 5:10. Is he going to hang until 5:20? All right. All right, so we're going to do two pairs of tickets right now. This is for the game on Saturday against the Grizzlies. And you'll be able to see Scoot play because he's coming back and will make his season debut tomorrow, which is really cool. So I want to make sure that I give everyone an equal opportunity here. So the first question is going to be via our text line, the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. So get your phones ready. 88528. 88528. Before I ask the question, I want to make sure you got it ready. I don't want to be yelled at for that. All right, 88528. First person who texts the correct answer, and I'm getting an education today, so I am very happy because I'm learning things about Bad Bunny, and I want to make sure that we help other people learn things about Bad Bunny, who's going to put on the halftime show. Didn't even know that Bad Bunny spoke Spanish until moments ago. I don't know anything about Bad Bunny. Not even sure I'd know a song if I heard it, to be honest with you. But they're not targeting me for their halftime Super Bowl show, and I'm cool with that. So 88528, the text line. First person with the correct answer. What is Bad Bunny's most streamed song? 88528. First person with the correct answer to the Rip City Radio text line will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Grizzlies on Saturday. Most streamed song from Bad Bunny. 88528. Fire away with your text right now. First person with the correct answer. Brenden will call you and get your information and set you up for the game on Saturday. All right. There we have it. The text line is now set. And now we're going to do a straight call. 503-248-0620. Caller 10 right now will get a pair of tickets for the game on Saturday against the Grizzlies. 503-248-0620. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. Chris Burkhardt's going to join me. We'll get his take on the deadline and the Trailblazers. Right now, fire away with your calls. 503-248-0620. And you'll be able to see the Blazers and Grizzlies on Saturday. We'll come back. And Chris Burkhardt, host of Courtside Monday and the fifth quarter and Blazers Game Day, is going to join us next. We'll get his take on the NBA trade deadline. Fire away with your calls. All right, we have a couple of winners for the Trailblazer tickets. According to Rabbi Google, La Canción is the top stream song for Bad Bunny. And I had no idea that Bad Bunny spoke Spanish. Never heard the music. It's just not my genre, again. And I don't have a problem with Bad Bunny doing the halftime show, but I'm not familiar. But they're not targeting me for the halftime show. And I get that. They shouldn't. They need to go after, someone with, the most wide appeal possible so they can bring in the ancillary fans and continue to have incredible ratings for the Super Bowl. The NFL knows what they're doing. They print money and make billions. So I think the NFL is pretty well on top of how to do things the right way. Even when they don't do things the right way, it works out because it's football and we love it. Let's go out to the phones. Chris Burkhardt, who is the host of Courtside Monday, Blazer Game Day, and Fifth Quarter. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, I made it. I'm here.
You did. Now, were you familiar with Bad Bunny?
I was, but not through his music. The only reason I knew he existed was because he had some guest spots on some WWE pay-per-views, and you guys all know I'm a wrestling nut, so that's how I knew Bad Bunny existed.
Yeah, I had someone else reach out and said, I had no idea who Bad Bunny was, but I know him from Happy Gilmore 2 as the caddy.
Well, there you go. That's what he was in, and that's how you know him. That's great. But you said it earlier. He's trying to get a demo that ain't you and I, and he's going to nail it, so it's all good.
Amazing. All right, Chris Burkhardt is with us. Well, the Trailblazers, the deadline is come and gone, and I guess my overall take is Cronin did a good job. He went out, addressed a specific need. They needed someone that could knock down shots. They got a guy who shoots a three-ball at over 42% in Vic Krejci, and you gave up a guy who wasn't going to be able to contribute the rest of the year because of the injury to Duwop Reeves. So I guess all in all, I like what Cronin did before the deadline. What's your take?
Yeah, I think Cronin was wonderful. Here's the thing. I saw people mention this on social media, and the thing is, Chad, if he would have made the move for Vic Krejci today, people would have been praising him. Oh, you got exactly what you needed. You got shooting. You did this. It's just the fact that it wasn't a big move here on the actual deadline itself that I think people are going a little crazy about. But also at the same time, man, you can't make moves just to make moves. And I'm glad that he didn't feel the pressure to necessarily have to make a move.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You don't need to make a move to make a move. And the Blazers were in a great spot where they didn't have to do anything. I guess the biggest surprise, we all thought getting closer to the deadline, they would have to do something to open up a roster spot for their two-way guys in Caleb Love and Sidi Sissoko. But now we know Scoot's coming back tomorrow. They've already got Blake Wesley back. Drew Holiday is back. I'm not so sure there's space for Caleb Love at this point.
No, and that's just the reality of it. And at the end of the day, he's been great. Let's not disparage him there. But when you get Blake Wesley back, you get Scoot Henderson back, and the fact that you got a shooter in Vic Krejci who's definitely going to get some playing time, Caleb Love becomes the odd man out of the rotation at that point. And Sidi Sissoko, I still think that they want because of that versatility, the ability to play multiple positions and guard multiple positions. So I still think they're going to find a way to at least free up that one spot. I'm looking at Matisse Thybulle as the guy that I would probably move off of. But no, it's not absolutely crucial that they get both of them at this point, despite the fact that I know they would like to. It's just not as crucial at this moment.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I guess for me, it would come down to availability. Like if you tell me that Matisse Thybulle and Chris Murray are going to be contributors after the All-Star break the rest of the way, then there's no need to make room for Sidi Sissoko. I don't know what to expect from Thybulle. I don't know if he's going to come back and play this year or not.
Because the injury is just weird, isn't it? It's always something new with him. The thing is with Thybulle, for me, Chad, is that he hasn't played. He's played, 19 games over the last 2 years, and he's going to be a free agent. And I don't necessarily think he wants to be in Portland. People forget he was a free agent, a restricted free agent, and he signed a deal with the Dallas Mavericks, and Portland matched it, and he wasn't very happy with it at that moment in time. So if he's going to end up hitting free agency, which I think he's going to do, at this point, just cut him to free up the spot. Doesn't matter if he's going to be available for 15 games this year. I don't think it does, especially if you really want to get a guy in Sidi Sissoko locked up.
Who would be more valuable to the team? Let's assume that Matisse Thybulle is going to play the rest of the way after the All-Star break. Who would be more valuable, Matisse Thybulle, healthy and playing after not having played most of the season, or Sidy Cissoko?
Well, I think that's a really good question. But if he's going to play all the rest of the year and there's a future and you like him, Matisse Thybulle is probably more valuable. He doesn't make he's not the scorer that Sidy Cissoko is, which is saying something because Sidy Cissoko is not light the doors off or burn the doors down scorer anyway. But Matisse Thybulle is an all-world defender when he's healthy. You saw it in the handful of games he played this year. He makes a difference.
Yeah.
And especially with the way the other teams kind of played this break, and a lot of teams around you got worse, and it feels like a play-in is Portland's to lose at this point. Yeah, Matisse Thybulle does lead to winning more than Sidy Cissoko does. It's just a matter of him actually being available to do so.
All right, here's the latest injury report for the game tomorrow. Dame, Chris Murray, and Thybulle are out. Avdia questionable, and Scoot Henderson now listed as probable, and we know he's going to make his debut, which is great. For me, if you look at the rest of the schedule, a couple of games against Memphis, and then they have the Philly game. So they have a few more games before the All-Star break. Like, I'm okay if they just want to rest Denny until after the All-Star break. I'd be okay with that. How do you see that? What's the best way to handle that?
I think it hurts because I want to see Denny on the floor just like you do. But I think it makes the most sense to just sit him as long as possible. Part of the reason this flared back up might have been just because you rushed him back a little bit because he's the type of guy that wants to play. Like if he has a pulse, he wants to play. We saw that with Damian Lillard too, right? Sometimes you gotta prevent the player from being his own worst enemy. So holding him out, I think, is probably the best bet, especially with this back-to-back against a Memphis team that got worse at the deadline, and you're going to get Scoot Henderson back, which is huge, and you're going to continue to acclimate Vit Krejci to that lineup, and you're going to have guys that can help you get through this lull and just get to All-Star break. So I don't necessarily see the harm in sitting him at that point.
All right. What else around the league jumped out at you? Was there anything that a team did that you liked or didn't like? Like, what grabbed your attention?
A couple things. I like what Washington's doing, even though people look at that and they're like, oh, my gosh, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, how's that going to work? For a team that has been terrible, they have been bad. For a team that has been like that, to go out and make those two swings for two all-star players, if they work together, great. If they don't, they don't. But if I'm a Washington fan, I'm jazzed right now. You went out and you made some moves. You took swings. We'll see where it happens. I think they match up good with Sarr down there, good young talent. I think one that stands out to me, too, is what Utah did with Jaren Jackson Jr. They got him without having to give up any of their core. The pick that they let go aren't super, super valuable. I mean, one of them was an Oklahoma City pick, so that's going to be back end of the draft anyway. One was a Laker pick, so they're a healthy Luka away from being a playoff team. So like Jaren Jackson with Keontae George and Ace Bailey and Lauri Markkanen, that's a fun young core. And then moves I don't necessarily like Indiana one kind of messes with me. Like, I get that they need some bigs after losing Miles Turner, but to get rid of Ben Mathurin and some first-round picks just to get Ivica Zubac, I mean, is that team really bad, or is it the fact that their best player is out for the year that hinders them a little bit? So I don't know if I'm a big fan of that one, but there's definitely lots of wheeling and dealing. I mean, I just told you all the things that surprised me without even the fact that, James Harden to Cleveland is also is that a good move or a bad move? I don't know, but it is definitely a James Harden move. It was a crazy little deadline.
Yeah, I'm not sure the Harden move will work out in the long term, but at least they get a guy who plays and is available compared to Darius Garland. But I'm with you on Indiana. It's not so much – it's not about this year, but going into next season, they're well positioned to get right back in the mix in the Eastern Conference. And I've always thought Zubac is a good player, but I do like what the Pacers did. I think they strengthened themselves today.
Yep. Yeah, and I could see that absolutely, like you said, looking at next year. Maybe it's just because I'm a Ben Mathurin fan. I liked him going into that draft. He was one of my favorite players. I was hoping Portland could have found a way to grab him. He can bring it on both ends. Getting rid of those picks might hurt you. Again, if you think Hallie's coming back next year 100% ready to go and be his old self, you need that guy who's going to lock down the paint. So I can see why they did it.
No question. The one good thing is, if you look at what the teams behind Portland did in the Western Conference, the Blazers are definitely going to be a part of the play-in at the very least. And so the rest of the season is going to be fun because we're going to get some type of postseason taste.
No, and that's exactly what I want this team to do. And there's people who get mad about the deadline or this 6-game losing streak. And think about it this way, Chad. This team was put into a spot where they could afford a 6-game losing streak and still be fully, basically, in control of where they sit in the play-in. And that's exactly what we thought this team was going to be, a play-in team. They're going to have their ups and downs, but they're building something here moving forward. And even just a taste of postseason basketball, even if it is just one play-in game, I think is massively valuable for a roster like this. You have covered this league long enough, as have I, to understand that playoff games are different. They are not like a regular season game. They are tighter. Rotations are different. You're not going 10 men deep all the time. You might go 8. You might have to play guys 40 minutes who have never played that before. You're getting roughed up. So getting guys like Shea and Tumani and Denny and DC into that environment, I think, is massively valuable moving forward. Even if it's just one game, I would rather have that one game than a lottery pick, and I'm not BSing you. That's truly how I feel.
That's awesome. All right, before I let you go, how do you see the Super Bowl playing out with the Hawks and Patriots?
Let's see. I'm going to go New England by a million. No part of me wants to see Seattle win as a 49er fan, especially since they killed me in the playoffs. But taking my pure bias out of this, New England is good. I don't like the people who have discredited them because they had an easy schedule to get here, because this is the NFL. An easy schedule can still be tough. You got to take care of their business. They did. The reason I like Seattle in this matchup, Chad, is because everybody focuses on Sam Darnold and Smith and Jigba and the talent they have on offense, and people sleep on how freaking good their defense was all year long. They have a defense that can go in there and win that game. I think that defense can give Drake May fits. And if Sam Darnold plays like he's done throughout the playoffs, where he tries to play mistake-free football, gets the ball to his talent makers, and they take their business, I think Seattle wins this by 10 points, 14 points. I think they can run away with it.
All right, Chris Burkhardt, who is busy as usual getting things done. He'll have Blazer Game Day tomorrow at 5, live from Moda Center as we get ready for the Blazers and Grizzlies. Chris, I appreciate you making time for the show. I know you're busy, and enjoy your night, brother, and I will talk to you soon.
Hey, and before I go, Chad.
Yes.
We got game tomorrow. We got game day. I cannot tell you how excited I am to ruin game day right here, to start off the show and say, injury update, Scoot Henderson listed as playing. He is not out. I am just, this feels like this is the best trade of the day. We traded an out on the injury report for an available, and I am jazzed to see Scoot Henderson, man. It is going to be great.
I love it. Yeah, it's going to be awesome, man. I can't wait to see him back on the floor. And really, I think that this offensive attack and playing fast was created with him in mind. So I can't wait to see as he kind of gets his feet under him, how he's going to be able to play with his creativity and that fast pace. It should be tailor-made for him.
It's going to be nice.
There you go. Chris Burkhardt, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it, buddy. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. So we have our 2 winners. Do you have the names in front of you, Brenden, so we can give them love on the show? Who are they? Brendan's going to have that in just a moment. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. No one is more committed to ensuring the Blazers and maintaining. New ownership coming in. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Going to be fun the rest of the way.
I got your info there, Chad.
Who are the winners?
Yeah, I want to shout out Matt Anderson from Gladstone.
What's up, Matt? What's up, Gladstone?
And then from your neck of the woods, Chad, Dave Williams from Vancouver.
What's up, Davey Dave? Dave Williams from Vancouver, also a winner. Nice work. Nice work. It's that simple. And now you guys can enjoy the Trailblazers and Grizzlies on Saturday. Have a little night out before Super Bowl Sunday. Also, not only that, but I guess my daughter's school is they're going to distance learning tomorrow. Like most of the school is sick. And then I heard there's a measles outbreak up in Ridgefield. I think I'll avoid in and out for the next couple of days. Was I vaccinated for that? Probably. Crazy. Let's go to Jackie in Sherwood. Jackie, I appreciate the phone call. Long time no chat. What's going on?
Hey there, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. I didn't want to change the topic too much, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on some of these guys that were traded to the Wizards.
Like Anthony Davis?
Well, there's a few. Wasn't there a few people that were shipped off there to oblivion? Or
Yeah. DC, the Wizards are basically like Siberia of the NBA, where if you get sent to the Wizards, that's never good news. But I just think I feel bad for Wizard fans because the team has been irrelevant for so long that I just can't even imagine being a Washington Wizards fan.
Trae Young was sent there too, wasn't he?
Yeah, Trae Young, Anthony Davis. So they're going to be interesting to watch now. So they're much more watchable today than they were. But that deal involving Anthony Davis involved like 8 different players, which is pretty wild. The Wizards, they get Anthony Davis, Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum. Dallas got Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley III, and future picks, both first and second round.
I feel bad for Chris Middleton. I think he's good.
He is. Yeah, Chris Middleton can still play for sure. There's no question about it. And, I also it's just interesting to see how things shake out. It's going to be weird to see Anthony Simons in a Chicago Bulls jersey now, too.
I know. I saw that. I felt bad for him as well.
Yeah, because Boston is a, legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference. So I was excited for Ant to get some, really big-time playoff experience. But, we'll see what he can do in Chicago. And there are certain Blazers that once they leave town, I still follow them around the league and see because I pull for them and want them to do well as individuals.
Yes, definitely.
And not so much DeAndre Ayton with the Lakers because he plays for the Lakers, but, other teams, other players, no problem. But I'm excited about, the Blazers the rest of the way, Jackie, because we get Scoot back tomorrow. Blake Wesley's back. Drew Holiday's back. Denny Avdia is probably going to take a couple more days to rest it back, but it should be a lot of fun after the All-Star break with, 26 games to go to see what they can do.
That's right. I'm excited, too.
Well, that's good. Well, Jackie, enjoy the weekend. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. Go Seahawks.
All right. Go Seahawks. There's Jackie in Sherwood. Let's go out to Eddie in Vancouver. My man. What's cracking, Eddie?
Chad, what's up, my guy?
It's all good.
I'm just so happy, Chad, about these Seahawks, baby. I just want to thank you, Chad, because I think it's about 3, maybe 4 years ago, you told me about the iHeart app, okay?
Yes.
Now, they, at the end of the year, how you said YouTube send you, like, how many hours you spent on YouTube.
Yes.
Well, my iHeart app says 38,012 minutes.
Wow.
Okay? And, 26 days, man, that I've been listening to you and Travis Demers, between RipCityDrive and, the Blazer games in the fifth quarter and Locked On Seahawks.
Nice.
Now, I want to call your listeners out there, get that iHeart app and follow the Seahawks from training camp. Follow your team if it's the Broncos, if the 49ers, follow them from April. Because I knew about Nick Amore. I knew about Gray Zabel. I knew the relationship Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith was having during the summer. And I'm not surprised at all. That game, the game against the Rams, that overtime game, when Nwosu got to Matt Stafford, he got that hit on his ribs, and he won the tent. It was like watching the Rocky movie when Rocky finally got Apollo and the music goes boom.
Dude, that was such a big time game. If you want to if you want to trace back the Hawks' pathway to the Super Bowl, that win against the Rams in overtime was the key moment because that allowed them to get home field advantage. What a big game that was. And how about Sam Darnold going 3 for 3 in the second half and overtime on 2-point conversions in that game to help them get over the top? Man. Massive.
Beautiful, man.
Well,
beautiful, man. I'm just hung up. And forget Duke, the UPS driver, man. When you were all nervous about, the Broncos playing the Buffalo Bills, I was nervous with thinking about the 49ers and the Rams. But guess what, Chad? I have no worries about the Patriots whatsoever. Not one worry whatsoever. Here's my Vicky Valancourt prediction from the Waterboy. The score is going to be Patriots 13, Seattle 30. The game's going to declare itself. I'm going to use Mike McDonald's terminology. The game's going to declare itself about the start of the second quarter.
That's awesome. Eddie, Have fun, man. Enjoy the game. Embrace the moment. You got to live it up and enjoy these moments when your team gets into the big game. It's awesome.
Thank you. Pat, you're one of the hardest working men in the radio business, man, going to Lincoln City, doing all that driving and on the radio, man. You've been putting in for a long time, man. Love you on these airwaves, man.
Dude, I love you, man. Eddie, you're the man. And thank you for your support and listening all the time through the iHeartRadio app. I appreciate you. It means a lot to me that you take time to make time for the show, which is cool. But I think Eddie describes, he's basically like every Seahawks fan I've talked to over the last couple of weeks. The idea of losing to the Patriots has never entered their dome. All right, we'll come back. Mitch in New Jersey wants to join. We'll get his take on the Super Bowl. 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. Blazers and Grizzlies tomorrow at 7 from Moda Center tip-off right here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 5. All right, so like where the Blazers are at, I think Joe Cronin did a good job at the deadline, went out and addressed a specific need in grabbing Vic Krejci, and now the Blazers getting healthy at the right time for their stretch run to the NBA play-in, and we'll see what they're able to do with that. Now, a reminder, tomorrow I'll be down at Spirit Mountain Casino. I'll be joined by their sportsbook manager, Justin Ballinger, at 3:20. So we'll go knee-deep into the Super Bowl with everything. And we'll be able to give you some good prognostication on the game. And then I'll be down there for the big party on Sunday. Also, Brian No Fox Sports Radio joins me tomorrow at 4:20. Let's go out to the phones. Our good friend Mitch from New Jersey wants to chime in. Mitch, welcome back to the show. What's on your mind, brother?
What's cracking, Chad? How you doing?
What's up? What's cracking?
Yeah, I tell you, I think Sam Darnold is going to win it for Minnesota and, of course, the Jets. They got to be kicking themselves. And my Raiders.
Can you believe that Sam Darnold is the first quarterback from USC to start a Super Bowl?
To start. Right, to start. And he has to win it now. He's come this far. He's got to win it.
Are you pulling for Seattle?
They have great defense. I'm pulling for Seattle. I like Leonard Williams. He's on the defensive line. I like their wide receivers, especially JSN. They had two good running backs, but one tore his ACL. But I think Walker's really good. And but they're going against. He's not better than Drake May. Drake May is a talent. You know who he reminds me of?
Who does he remind you of?
Young John Elway. And John Elway in his first two Super Bowls, he didn't do so well. But he's a big boy. You don't have to know what people. The other guys in the defense are much bigger than Drake May, but he's a big guy and he can run if he has to. But he has a good arm. But I think Sal's gonna hold him down. And what you think about the straight line today? I thought what Washington did. Well, no matter what you think about Anthony Davis, he's the best player that won between Dallas and Washington. He's a Hall of Famer. Him and Trae Young, that's gonna be something next year. And with this first round pick, they went to Dallas. Don't tell me it's going to be a lottery pick. Can you imagine if they get the first pick again?
I know.
With Cooper Flag and Irvin. Irvin's still on the team. All of a sudden, I've never seen injured players be traded. It's not a problem anymore, no matter how long they're out. Except for Kyrie Irvin, I guess. They want to take a risk on him.
That's true. You know, it's amazing.
Dallas have some team.
I just did the math. John Elway was outscored 136-40 in his first three Super Bowls.
Hey, he's only one person. He can't do everything, all right? You expect him to do everything back in the day? Play defense, Stanford quarterback. You know who's all at Stanford? I didn't realize he was such a good athlete. He was a three-star athlete in high school. John Brody. Passed away about a month ago.
And who else? Jim Plunkett was a big Stanford guy, too.
Yep, right. Him. First Mexican, and then the first Cuban to win the Heisman, Mr. Mendoza. He's starting for the Raiders. Day one.
He is.
Game one.
There's no question about that for sure. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a good game, and I'm not thrilled about the two teams because of my sports hate, but yes, I think it's going to be a good matchup and should provide a compelling game on Sunday.
Had you guys had Knicks, you would have won that game.
Well, I know.
And they still could have won that game. That was a bonehead play with the shuffle pass. Get rid of it.
Yeah, that was a bad play,
Don't
Mitch.
move with these shuttle passes. It's the fade has to out though, and there's one more thing I wanted to say. Of course, I forget. Well, it's my fault. Anyway, I can't wait for baseball, baby. Dodgers three-peat, baby.
They better three-peat.
These teams shouldn't even just show up.
Yeah, the Dodgers are going to be they're going to be unbelievable this year. Like if their pitching staff stays healthy for a longer stretch of the season, they could challenge the Mariners' wins in 01. No question about it. The Dodgers are going to be unstoppable.
Mariners, they let some guys go, but they added somebody. The name escapes me. But yeah, I like what Seattle. Seattle was one in from being the worst there is, and of course the Dodgers were 1 in and 1 out from losing the series.
That's right. Until Miggy Rowe, your boy Miggy Rowe stepped up with the big home run.
Who is this utility guy? I want to see Hall of Famers in every position. That's right. I'm greedy. I was hoping they bring in Cody, and I was hoping Bo Bichette, and not Bo Bichette, trade for Cora, which is still a possibility. But I'm just going on and on here. Chad, enjoy the Super Bowl. Talk to you later.
All right, I appreciate you, brother. There you go. There you go. That's Mitch in New Jersey, excited about Sam Darnold getting the opportunity to start and win the Super Bowl. First USC quarterback to start a Super Bowl. Big thanks to Brenden Slaughter. Big thanks to Brad Botkin, Sean Highkin, and Chris Burkhardt. You guys have a great night. I'll be on 3 o'clock tomorrow with the Rip City Drive. Sportsbook manager from Spirit Mountain breaking down the Super Bowl with me at 3:20. Justin Ballinger, Brian Noe at 4:20. You guys have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.